Yes. Okay. So we are here tonight, and Hope is joining us via Zoom. And so we don't have families joining us in person yet. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. Tonight, Hope is going to talk about SSI and benefits planning. And so folks online, if you have questions, feel free to unmute and just ask. And as people come in, if they do, we'll let you know, Hope, if anybody has questions here.
Okay, great. Well, hi again, I'm Hope. I'm one of the benefits planners with DVR, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. Excuse me. And I would like to chat about the Social Security benefits, specifically, as Beth mentioned, the SSI benefits. I was wondering, so I had sent the presentation that I'm going to use to you folks earlier. Do you want to pull that up, or do you want me to pull it up and just share my screen, or?
Share screen would be nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, let me go ahead and get that going. Okay. Let's see. Alrighty. Had to close out of a few things really quick. Okay. Excuse me. Let me see if it'll allow me. Oh, whoever the host is, could you enable me to share my screen?
Hope you should be able to share your screen now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay. I'm not very techy, so I hope that that worked. Can everyone see it? Good to go? Wonderful. Well, excuse me. So let's chat about some SSI benefits. Well, first, I just wanted to let you know that there are several different kinds of Social Security benefits. A lot of them are based on work history of some kind, but we'll focus on the SSI benefit tonight. And we'll talk more about how that one is thankfully not based on work history, and that's a good thing. So SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income. And for those of you who are thinking of or maybe have students who are considering applying for SSI, a few things to be aware of are that the requirements for SSI are based on both functional and financial aspects of eligibility. And what that means is they're going to look at someone's disability information, but they're also going to look at their income situation as well, and resources. So those are all pieces to consider when applying for the SSI benefit or finding out about applying, and making sure that you have all of your ducks in a row before you go through that application process. And here is some information about applying. You can call or visit the local office, the local Social Security office, to help you get started with that. You can also go to this link here to begin the process. They have specifically SSI liaisons at Social Security who can help you go through and start the process as well, which is very helpful. Or if you're a DVR customer, you can request a benefits planning meeting and we can talk a little bit more and give you some resources to start that process as well. Some things to expect when you do apply. You want to definitely have a realistic expectation and know that there is about a 40% denial rate across the board for first-time applicants. That is a big number, so it is quite likely that even if you apply and you should be getting benefits, you could be denied. They could say no. That doesn't mean that that's the end, because you can appeal that decision. You can actually appeal several times, and if you want things to go a little smoother, a little quicker, there are also options to get some assistance from a lawyer. There are lawyers who specialize in helping folks get on the SSI benefit. And a lot of times, you know, they do charge a fee, but they won't try to collect that fee until you're on benefits. And there is something called a back payment that they can collect their fee from, because there will be a time period where if you are approved, Social Security will say, oh, we approve you and we should have been giving you SSI for the last several months. And so we'll go ahead and give you a back payment for that period. That happens oftentimes when things don't go to plan immediately, when there's a waiting period and you have to go through a few appeals. So that's a great option that you have for sure. What about if you're under the age of 18? That is something that you want to definitely be aware of, how, you know, not just your income, but parents' income, household income can also be taken into consideration when looking at SSI eligibility and how much SSI funds you're eligible to receive. So for folks under age 18 who are on SSI, their parents and their own income and resources can affect SSI eligibility and amount of the benefit. For those who are over age 18, thankfully, only your income and resources are going to affect your SSI eligibility and the amount that you receive. But there's also a factor that they consider regarding how much you are paying towards rent and your basic costs. So if you're getting a discount in rent or you're getting some help paying for basic costs of living, that could have also affect your SSI cash benefit. A few things about the SSI benefit. It is for people who are below a certain income amount, so low income. It can be for folks who are aged over age 64 and folks who have a disability or specifically blindness. And it is just a supplemental benefit. You want to keep that in mind, because it's not very much that they give you each month, and it's to supplement your needs for some income, but it's really not something that you can just comfortably have and you know, pay for all of the expenses that you're going to have in adult life. It's also, thankfully, like we mentioned, not based on work history. So that means that, you know, folks who are older who maybe don't have a consistent or good work history could get an SSI benefit, but specifically for our purposes, it's great news for folks who are young and don't have a work history yet, but they still need that extra support. So there is a full potential amount that you could get for SSI, if you're eligible for that benefit. It's called the federal benefit rate. And like I said, it's not very much. It's only $943 per month in 2024. The amount usually goes up a little bit every year, but not by much. And the amount of SSI that you receive is going to depend on your resources. It's going to depend on your other income that you have, and it's going to depend on, you know, several different factors. But speaking specifically about income, they're going to look at your countable income. And that can be broken down into two main categories, which is your earned income or wages and your unearned income. Unearned income can be a lot of different things. I recently met with someone who had SSI, and they also had a couple $100s of child support, and that went towards reducing their SSI benefit. So they got less SSI money because they also were still receiving that child support. Earned income, of course, is your wages from work, and that one, thankfully, Social Security is not going to count very much of it. So unearned income, they count almost dollar for dollar. They'll ignore a very small portion of it, but most of it they're going to count against your SSI. But earned income, thankfully, they're only going to count a little bit less than half of what you actually are earning at work, your gross wages, the before taxes amount. A few other things to be aware of with SSI. The SSI cash benefit is going to be functioning as a reduction benefit rather than an all or nothing benefit, which is good news. That's definitely helpful. So when you're working, they're not going to say, oh, all of a sudden you're working and so your SSI is gone. Thankfully, that's not the case. So it's not going to just, you know, all of a sudden be at zero unless you're working really, really high hours. Also, there is an amount that you could earn that would make your SSI reduce all the way to zero, and that's called the break-even point. And that this year, if you were receiving the full potential SSI, would be close to a little over $1,900. Also, in the state of Washington, Medicaid is automatically attached to SSI. So folks in certain other states who are eligible for SSI, they have to actively go and apply for Medicaid separately. But thankfully, in Washington, when someone is eligible for the SSI benefit, they get Medicaid automatically. They don't even have to think about it. Food stamps is another thing, or food assistance rather. So either food stamps or the WASH CAP program. Those are also should be automatic as well when someone gets SSI. Their eligibility for those things should be considered immediately. A few limitations to be aware of with the SSI benefit is that it is, of course, based on disability and what Social Security considers your need for the cash benefit. Household income can affect the amount of SSI cash benefit that you receive. And that could be, you know, when we're talking about folks who are younger, a lot of times that's parental income when they're below the age of 18. But sometimes when someone is married and they're on SSI, their spouse's income can affect their SSI eligibility as well. So just something to think about there. There's also a resource limit. There's a $2,000 resource limit for SSI individuals. And I believe the resource limit for folks who are on SSI under age 18, their parents have a $3,000 resource limit attached to theirs as well. Also, Social Security has a 2-month delay in their accounting schedule. It's called retroactive or retrospective monthly accounting. And that is an almost guarantee that when you are reporting income or wages or changes to Social Security, it's going to take them at about 2 months to make that reflected in your SSI benefit. So you always want to be aware of that. So SSI and resources, some things you want to keep in mind are that there are some things Social Security won't count as resources. They actually ignore one vehicle and they ignore one home. So someone on SSI could technically own their own home and a vehicle, and that doesn't count as resources because those are things that they recognize you definitely are going to need. But everything else almost, if you can think of it, likely they will count it against the SSI resource limit. And that means, you know, retirement benefits, life insurance, land, cryptocurrencies, all of those things are going to be counted as resources, and especially any kind of bank account or savings or checking account that your name is on. And that means the collective amount has to be below $2,000. I don't know if let me see. Yeah, I don't think I have a slide in here about it, but there are options, specifically options called an ABLE account and a special needs trust, that are great options for folks who have experienced their disability young and they want to have the option to have savings without it affecting their Social Security or Medicaid eligibility. But that'll have to be another discussion. But if you want, you guys can look it up online. ABLE accounts and special needs trust are both great options. And we can talk about those more extensively if you are a DVR client. So something else to keep in mind and just remember is that SSI is going to decrease slowly as your other income increases, because they're only going to reduce your SSI about a little less than $1 for every $2 you earn at work. So that's how they count just a little less than half of your wages against the SSI. And they're going to look at your gross wages. So for traditional employment where you are an employee of someone, they're going to look at your gross wages rather than your take-home pay. And that can be confusing, so you always want to make sure you remember that. Also, something else to keep in mind, even with the SSI reduction, you're going to have more money when you're working and you have your SSI than when you only have your SSI, because of the way they structure how they're counting your wages. We have an example of work here just to kind of give you a point of reference. This example we have here is if someone was working 20 hours a week at the current minimum wage in Washington, which is $16.28 per hour, and what that looks like with the full federal benefit rate of SSI. So 20 hours a week times the $16.28 per hour, and we always use 4.33 weeks when we're estimating monthly wages, because there's almost never exactly 4 weeks in the month. There's usually a few scraggly days on the end there that you want to account for. You don't want to accidentally lowball your estimation. So that comes out to about $1,409 of gross wages. And so in step one here, we see that this is the equation that, so the very basic equation that Social Security uses to decide how much SSI money to send someone. So what they do is they apply these little income exclusions that they have. They have a $20 general income exclusion, so they ignore that right off the top, and they have a $65 earned income exclusion, so they'll ignore that one next. And then whatever's left over, their third income exclusion says, whatever you have left, just cut it in half. So this person would be earning about $1,400, but Social Security would only actually count about $662. And that's the countable earned income amount. And that's what will be coming out of the SSI. So it would be $943 of SSI money, subtracting that $662 of countable earned income. So this person would have about $281 of SSI benefits that they would receive while they're working at this level. And that means that they still have that SSI money plus all of their wages they work so hard for all month. And if you look, they're going to have more money when they're working, and even though their SSI is smaller than when they only have their SSI. So their gross budget it goes up from, 943, it goes up to 1,690. And when you think about it, even if they took like, $150, $200 out of there, they would still have a few $100s more to use in the month net than they did with only their SSI. The big picture, gotta have more money. Definitely the goal though, so perfect. Let's talk a little bit about reporting best practices. This is something that we talk extensively about in our benefits planning meetings, but just to hit a few of the highlights, if someone is getting SSI benefits, it's really important to have clear, consistent communication with Social Security. And for SSI, a lot of times they will have a claims representative who is assigned to be your contact person. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's in flux, but it's important to remember that if you do have a contact person, you should try calling them or contacting them first to report a big change like start of work, stop of work, all of that kind of stuff. Change of address, change of marital status, all of that for an SSI beneficiary. Very important to talk to them directly. But worst case scenario, you can just call the local office number and let them know that you're on SSI, or if you're their payee, the person who helps them manage their finances, you can say, oh, this beneficiary who's on SSI, I'm their payee, and I'm reporting start of work. And that's really important to do pretty quickly. Like I would say within maybe the first week of work, when you know what your hours and your schedule and your pay is going to be, so that you can pass that on to Social Security. And you want to make sure that you are reporting wages every month. Technically, they do give you until the 10th of the month, but it's really important to try and shoot for a couple days ahead of that, simply because their system tends to get really bombarded like on or close to the 10th of the month. So it's better to aim for a few days ahead. And you also want to keep in mind that you only have to, for SSI specifically, it's different for different benefits, but for SSI, they care about the money that you earn in the month, or sorry, the money that you receive in the month, not the money that you earn in the month. So for folks who are working and then they haven't gotten paid maybe for like that last week of work in the month, but then they get paid early in the next month, you don't have to fret about that. Just report it in the next month when you actually receive the payment, when you receive your wages. That's an important distinction. So for SSI, any checks that you receive, that's what you want to report. And that means that anything that you earn in March, for example, you want to try to report in early April. And there are several different ways you can report, thankfully for SSI anyway. They have a specific designated phone number that you can use. They have the mailing, and I think, I don't see it on here, I should have added it, but mailing or faxing. They accept faxing for pay stubs, and they have a drop box at the local office. They even have an app for your phone. Probably the best option, if you can set it up. It's a little clunky to set it up because they have a two-step verification process, but if you can set it up and you feel comfortable using it, a really great option is the My Social Security account. That's actually an account that Social Security wants every single person in the US to open. And so you could open one now, or someone who's thinking about getting SSI, they can open it now in their name. It gets a little tricky if you have an adult child who has a need for a payee, that person who's going to help them manage their finances. It might be better to open one under your name, because if whoever is going to be the payee, they can use their own account to report for the person on SSI who they are helping be the payee for. and they have something that connects automatically called the payee portal. All of this stuff we talk about in depth in our benefits planning meetings, just FYI. So again, that My Social Security account, great option for reporting, because it also not only is easier to report monthly using it, but it gives you a receipt every time you report the wages. Social Security for SSI is supposed to, for all the other options, it's supposed to send you a letter verifying, oh, we got your information and we logged it in and here's, you know, what to expect. But some offices are really busy or understaffed or just, you know, whatever the case might be, and they don't send those very often. And so it's nice to get that verification immediately. Also something to consider when you are working, you want to always have control over your pay stubs. And by that, I mean, you either want to make sure that if you're going to get direct deposit, you want to make sure that you get either a hard copy of your pay stub, or if they give you access to a pay stub portal where you log on and you can view your pay stub, that you save that either on a computer or tablet or whatever, or you print it. Because if you stop working at that company, they're not going to give you infinite access to that pay stub portal. Eventually your access will go away. And you always want to be able to have those pay stubs available to reference later if Social Security asks for them. And I don't want to scare you, but sometimes Social Security will ask for them even years later. So it could be 5 years later, 10 years later, 15, 20 years later. I wish I was joking, but they do that sometimes. So always keep copies of pay stubs that you have access to that you can reference later. Alrighty. Let's talk about benefits planning services with DVR. So we are very grateful to have benefits planners on staff with DVR, and we can work with people who are eligible for DVR services, who are actual DVR clients. And, you know, we can provide a lot of support for folks who have Social Security benefits. This one is a little tricky. I don't know why it's, there we go. And part of that support is being able to give folks individualized information. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced a few different people who have Social Security benefits. They may have similar benefits or seemingly the same kind of benefits. Or some people I run into say, oh yeah, you know, I've got Social Security, my friend's got Social Security. But for DVR clients, we make sure and get information directly from Social Security so that we can discuss a person's individual circumstances. And we don't have time to go into it now, but two people can be on the same benefit and their benefit will be affected very differently by work, each individual's benefits. And so we talk about, you know, what our client has and what to expect for that person, not just like, oh, my uncle has benefits, and so I know that I can work 20 hours a week and nothing happens. You know, I hear that quite often. and that can be really detrimental to folks not knowing what to expect with their specific circumstances. There's also a lot of miscommunication and misunderstandings surrounding Social Security benefits within the community. Like I mentioned, people can have seemingly the same benefits, but you know, work is going to affect their benefits differently, or you know, there could be things happening kind of in the background that they don't even know about with their benefits, but we can find that out for them and discuss it and make sure that they're set up for success so they can manage things, or they and their payee can manage things. There's also a few programs where well, a lot of programs, but especially a few where there are income limits or resource limits and things attached to them. And some of those programs have income limits that change up to 4 times a year. And it's not always easy to chase down that information for folks. So thankfully, we are kept abreast of all of the new numbers and the new limitations and standards and all of that when they come out, so we can give people the newest information, so they're not working off of old information that might be causing them to not work as efficiently or as much as they would like. So like I mentioned, benefits planners can help folks who are DVR customers, who are eligible for DVR services. And thankfully, if you have Social Security benefits based on disability, then you are usually presumed eligible, and we can get in for benefits planning nice and quick. And so I like to meet with folks. We have kind of a minimum amount of times that we like to meet with people when they are working with DVR, and we like to meet with them at least 4 times during their process. But thankfully, I and my other colleagues on the benefits planning team, we're available as much as people need when they're a DVR customer. We can have, standing meetings if they need to. I sometimes have folks who would really benefit from payee services, but unfortunately circumstances prevent them from having a payee. And whether it's like the cost or they just don't have someone. And so I'm happy to meet with them frequently, as much as they need, to make sure that they know what to expect and they know how to manage their benefits. That's so important, especially when you're going to work and you're juggling several different things. So, also we can meet with folks who have other state benefits as well. That's a bit of a shorter conversation, but those are also things that we cover. So usually we have a regional transition consultant that you can get in contact with for folks who are in schools, but there's also the local DVR office. You can reach out to them and get your process started. And if you have Social Security benefits or you're planning on applying for them, you can let the folks at the local local DVR office, let them know that you have that and you want to get in and see a benefits planner as soon as possible, and we can try to expedite all of that through your process. All right. I went through that a lot quicker than I usually do, my goodness. I'd be happy to answer questions at this time if anyone has any.
I'll ask a question because I do have one. This is Beth Sykes. If we have students who are new to the work world and their families are signing up for SSI, do they sign up for SSI or SSDI?
I'm so sorry. My Zoom, can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. My Zoom just disappeared. That distracted me a little bit. So your question was for folks who have students, should they sign up for SSI or SSDI?
Students who are entering the paid work and they're still students, do they sign up for SSI or SSDI, or is that just determined when their families go through that process?
Yeah, great question. So SSDI is a benefit that is based on work history. So you have to have worked a certain amount and earned a certain amount of what they call quarter credits to be eligible for the SSDI benefit. So folks who don't have an extensive work history or don't have, at least a few years of really consistent work under their belt are not going to be eligible for SSDI. So I would recommend applying for the SSI benefit. There's also another benefit that's called SSDAC that some folks might be eligible for, and that stands for Social Security Disabled Adult Child. And that is specifically a benefit for folks who are over 18 and their parent has a good work history. And so their adult child who has a disability would be eligible for a benefit based on their parents' work history. That one's a little trickier, but that is also something that I see sometimes if a parent has their own disability benefit, if their parent has a retirement benefit, or if their parent was deceased. I apologize. I don't see the I don't know why, but my Zoom went away. Can you all still see me, or can you just hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you.
Okay, then can't see me. I don't know why my Zoom just it just up and disappeared. I apologize. Anywho, any other questions that you all have for me?
Yeah, you do have a question?
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
Hold on, I need a question.
Yes.
This is great. There you go. Okay, I need a question. See the kids working in only the cherries season in the summer, they get up the exercise or not? This is my question.
So when are you talking about like a student who's on SSI
Yes,
and they're working over the summer between the school years?
yes.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. So SSI has a special rule attached to it specifically for students who are under the age of 22 and they're still considered a full-time student and they're working while they are considered a full-time student. It's called the Student Earned Income Exclusion, and it does work over the summer as long as the student is enrolled for the fall semester as a full-time student. So they can work over the summer, and some of those wages or potentially all of those wages could be ignored by Social Security because that student earned income exclusion allows them to ignore up to, I believe it is $2,290 per month, and then it's close to $9,230 for the calendar year of wages spread out over the 12 months.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's absolutely something that if you have a student who's on SSI, you do have to request it. So you want to report those that work and those wages to Social Security, but you want to also ask them and say, you know, my student is a full-time student and they're working on SSI. We would like you to apply the student earned income exclusion to their wages, and they can get you started on that process. Great question. Any other questions that folks have? I'd be happy to answer.
We do not have questions in our room. Anybody online? Nope. Okay. Well, Hope, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your information. So families, if you guys have more questions, you can reach out to the DVR office if you're connected with DVR and have Hope answer some questions. Thank you, Hope. Thanks, families, for being online with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm happy to come back anytime.